What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Rant and Rave. Today's video, of course, we are going to be previewing UFC 287. It goes down in Miami, and it is a serious card. We've, of course, got in the co-main event Gilbert Burns taking on Jorge Masvidal, and of course, the main event sees the rematch in UFC, but obviously they fought twice in kickboxing as well. Israel Adesanya, of course, taking on Alex Pereira, one of the most scary men you'll ever see in your life. So that's going to be an intriguing battle. But we will, of course, this card's absolutely stacked. So we will start in the prelims. It's a really strong prelims as well. So yeah, we'll jump straight into that. But Dave, first of all, of course, we will have to go to you and ask you how you're keeping, man.
I'm keeping very well. How about
Yeah,
you?
all good. Yeah, man, listen, can't complain too
Can't
much.
complain.
Yeah, that's it. Like, good listening, same stuff, different week, like, but no, excited for
Exactly.
this card. It should be an absolute
Yeah, me too,
cracker.
man. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it is, and I feel like it's a very important fight to people's careers as well. You know, you look through it, and a couple of people, it's like must win territory nearly.
Yeah, it appears that way anyway. There's a few kind of people that are coming in, four losses out of their last five and five losses out of the last six. So hugely important fights for even people kind of like well-known names like Masvidal coming in. He kind of needs a win. I know there was another guy that I was looking at who needs a win. Gastelum as well. Majorly needs a win. Five out of his last six. So it's kind of make or break time for him.
Big time, big time. We'll start off with the women in the prelims. We, of course, have the very well known Michelle Waterson, the Karate Kid, taking on Luana Pinheiro in a huge fight in that division. Of course, you have Michelle Waterson, of course, has been in and around the title mix for a long time and has been like a household name in the UFC. And she was kind of in, as I said, in and around that mix, but she is on the back of, I think is it she's lost four of the last five. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a crucial fight for her, but it's a really tricky one as well. Pinheiro is on I think it's a 6 fight winning streak. Just looking here, she picked up a sixth consecutive win on the Contender Series. So yeah, it's a really big test for Michelle Waterson, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of who comes out on top in that one. Michelle Waterson, I think you were saying before, 37, 38 now as well. So maybe
Yeah.
one last title run in her, and this would be the perfect way to start it.
Yeah. I mean, we were saying about like kind of must win fights. I mean, it's the exact same for her coming in after off a few losses. I think it might be a bit of a stretch, maybe. I'd like to see her maybe kind of have one last shot at the title, but I think she's got a tough challenge ahead of her now with Pinheiro because she's a bit of a knockout artist. I think she's 10-1. So it's a 6 fight win streak you were saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Six
Not
fight win
yeah.
streak,
Do the fights on
which
the Contender Series count towards your record? I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, six
um
fights.
I'd have to check that. I'm not because I think they might be too. I'm not sure if they're like Ultimate Fighter style,
Yeah,
like
that's what I was thinking.
they're a
Yeah,
bit shorter.
yeah,
Um, but I know I was looking at Pinheiro, kind of her MMA record and stuff, and she went I think six KO victories in a row.
yeah,
So she definitely has the kind of the competency to come in and secure a knockout. So it's a tough one. I think just because Michelle is kind of on the older side. Obviously, she's a crafty veteran, but it's experience against the kind of young, hungry KO artist.
mm,
So it depends on how you want to look at it. But I think she is just that little bit on the older side. So I do think Pinheiro could come in and get a KO over.
yeah. No, exactly. I would agree that I think Pereira will win. I think obviously, yeah, as you said, a younger fighter, and I think she's bigger, and I think she probably hits harder as well. And
Yeah.
so I do think Michelle will have enough experience to kind of get it to the decision. I think she'll have enough about her and enough craft, as you say, and enough to kind of stay in the fight and make it competitive. But I think yeah, Panero will take it by decision. Jumping up into the cracking card on the prelims, and it's a fight that you wouldn't like expect a couple of years ago. If you had said this is going to be a prelim fight, prelim fighter, you wouldn't have believed it really. Calvin Gastelum, you kind of mentioned him previously there, but still so young, only 30, 31 years of age, and he takes on Chris Curtis in the middleweight division. A really important fight for Kelvin. How do you see it going for him?
Yeah, no, I agree with you saying you probably wouldn't have expected him to be on the top of the prelims, but I think the UFC kind of have a tendency to throw a big fight on the prelims. Like I've seen that in recent cards that they've thrown a big fight in the prelims, which kind of further explain or further shows how stacked the card is.
Mm.
Um, it's tough just to see how this one goes. I think they're in the rankings. They're right there about 14 and 15. Yeah, exactly. So they kind of have nothing really to gain in terms of rank position. But obviously, Kelvin, he desperately kind of needs a win. I think I can't remember his last couple of fights. I know Chris Curtis is coming in with a good win over Joaquin Buckley, good
Mm,
KO win over Joaquin Buckley. Um,
full of confidence.
yeah, he has three KOs in the UFC as well. So I think it's a tough one. Because Kelvin is that bit younger, but I just think his form in recent years has kind of been pretty bad. And if you're looking back, like his most notable performances were kind of against like KO win over Bisping, but that was years ago now. And he had a loss to Darren Till, and Darren Till wasn't in the best of kind of form over the last few years. So I think he has a lot to prove in this one. So if he can come in and have a good performance, it'd be great. But I do think Chris Curtis could get the win here.
Yeah, yeah. Curtis is a bigger guy. Calvin's always been a little bit undersized. Sorry, at 185, I find as well, and it's like he definitely probably
Yeah.
should be fighting that Walter White. Walter White.
Yeah,
But
but it's interesting. It's interesting you say that though. Like, sorry to cut you off, but it's
oh, you're
interesting to
good.
say that considering like how good of a scrap he gave Izzy. Like, and
Mm,
it was like it was hugely competitive, and obviously towards the end, Izzy started to take over. But if he can compete at that top level, like, and that was fight of the year, I think, fight of the year
yeah,
contender anyway.
yeah, it was. Yeah.
So it's interesting. Yeah, he is a little bit undersized, but I definitely think he can compete at that weight.
No, for sure. Yeah, he's shown that in a lot of fights, but as you kind of touched on, 1-5 in his last six,
Yeah.
which was really a big slide for him. And I remember
Mm.
Chael Sonnen talking about him always being like he's such a talented fighter, so well rounded and stuff. And I do still do think that. I hope this is kind of like a reset fight for him where he can like a fight here and he wins here and he wins his next one. He's back in the top 10, right back in the conversation for getting to the wherever he wants to go. So and he's still kind of coming into his prime, maybe you could say. So yeah, I'm going to back Kelvin Gastelum to get back in the win column. And I'm thinking he's going to take it by decision. I think he might mix in some wrestling potentially. He's quite good and well rounded and stuff. So yeah, I'm going to go for Kelvin to get it done here, but it won't be an easy fight by any stretch.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see it. I think Calvin's he's a nice fella and he's a really good fighter. And like I think I like watching his style because obviously you can say he mixes in the wrestling and like he's a sharp striker and
Yeah.
so he has the potential to be a really exciting fighter, but he's kind of had too many decision losses over the last few fights. But I was just thinking, can you imagine him fighting? You're saying about size. Can you imagine him fighting Pereira?
Oh,
Be something of a massacre, wouldn't
yeah,
it?
literally. Like even in fight, like even Hamza who's in 170. I know he's probably gonna come up now to 185, but he's
Yeah,
so much bigger than him as well. Like it's just
yeah,
he's a short guy, but he's kind of stocky, isn't he? I think he's only like 5'9", Kevin.
yeah. He is only 5'9", but he's so built though.
No, he is. Yeah, yeah, he is. Hey, so your official prediction for that?
I'm going. I kind of went back and forth when I was kind of looking at it. I was thinking, my heart, I'd love to see Kelvin win, but I'm going Chris Curtis by decision, just based on Kelvin's kind of recent performances. He's lost by decision, I think, 4 or 5 times in the last few fights. So I just think he's not getting it over the line. So if he can come out kind of a more aggressive and kind of go for it, then potentially. But I'm going to go Curtis by decision.
Yeah, cool. Moving into the main card, then of course, first up we have Christian Rodriguez, C Rod, not to be confused with D Rod, as his
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. He goes up against the youngest ever UFC fighter, Raul Rosas Jr. Of course, he marked his UFC debut with a win back in December of last year, and he looked very impressive. This is of course bantamweight bout, and he's made some big claims. Rosas Jr. He's gone on to say like he'll be I think it was the first ever three-weight world champion. So I presume it was 125, 135, 145. Because I think I saw something earlier on that said like he's weighing like 140 something now, like 144 pounds now. So it's an easy weight cut for him to 135. So he definitely could get down to 125 as well. And like his post match fight, his post match interview after his debut, as well was it's funny. He's talking about uses fight bonus to buy like a mini truck or something to drive to the UFC PI and stuff. Like he's just like
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
character, like
Yeah, yeah, he is a bit of a character. Yeah, he's gas.
Yeah, so this will be a tough one. Obviously, he's 7-0. What is he like 18, 19? Like it's crazy.
He's 18, yeah.
Yeah, and he
18,
has that many fights under his belt already. So he does
yeah.
seem like he's quite composed for his age. He won't get overawed by the occasion at all. And for me, I think this is not a straightforward scrap. C-Rod will put it up to him.
Yeah.
But I think I'd go for Al Rosas Jr. just to get it done. Via decision, I'll go again, but I think he'll get it done.
Yeah, no, I think that's it's fair because there was kind of a lot of media attention with him being so young. I think he must be probably the youngest. Yeah, he is the youngest UFC fighter
Youngest
ever,
ever.
isn't he?
Yeah.
Which makes sense. He's only 18 years old. So I think they would like to see him win because he having that kind of title, they'd like to push him and potentially, and he has obviously he's Mexican as well, and there's now three current UFC champions,
Mm.
Mexican UFC champions, and like I think prior to these three there was none. So
Yeah.
they are probably trying to promote their kind of Mexican fighters and try and get stars in that kind of region.
Mm.
Yeah, like he is hugely impressive for being so young. I know all these MMA fighters start out like really young and stuff, but like 18, 7 like professional fights under his belt at 18
Yeah.
is amazing. So
Usually
um
wait till like nearly mid 20s or like early 20s before going into the UFC. You want like your early
absolutely.
fights to be like your ones where you learn. You might pick up a couple of losses, and like make your mistakes when you're not under the spotlight. But he's in a main card at 18 years old and he's 7-0. Like, and if he makes a mistake, all his eyes are going to be on him. And not that he'd be written off or anything, of course not. But
Mm,
like,
mm.
like it could be detrimental for like his perspective and his point of view moving forward. If he has to suffer like an embarrassing situation on such a grand stage at such a young age. But I do think he is the type of guy that is going to just take it all in his stride.
Yeah, I mean, like it seems that he's taken it all in a stride so far. 'Cause
Yeah.
to go in and kind of be unbeaten at this age and have significant amount of fights under his belt, but it's just one of those things where he is still so young, and like regardless of how he's coming across now, like that lack of experience could eventually go against him. I think, even if he continues to perform well for the next 2 or 3 years, he'll still only be 2021, and a lot can kind of change and. I just like to see how he deals with adversity over the next kind of couple of years. But
Mm.
coming into this one, I think I fancy him to win. I know C Rod he's only a young guy as well. I think he's only 25.
Yeah.
Uh, he's 8-1. I think he's only had two fights in the UFC. I think he one win, one loss. But he's coming in off a good KO, so it'll be a tough challenge because it's not like they're feeding Raul like a complete bum or someone who's kind of like four wins, two losses or something. Like this
Oh,
guy's
no.
has plenty of wins and only one loss, so it'll be a good fight. But yeah, if I had to pick, I would be going with Raul Rosas.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Next up, we've a big fight at welterweight. We have Kevin Holland taking on Santiago Ponzinibbio. Kevin Holland, of course, recently had a couple of recent defeats, but they're against kind of big names, Stephen Thompson,
Yeah,
and then of course Hamza Chimaev made very light work of him.
yeah.
And I kind of felt bad for him because he was kind of tossed into it because I think wasn't it Diaz? It was supposed to be Diaz Chimaev, and then Chimaev missed weight, and then I think was it a catch weight or something with Holland or something, and then Diaz obviously fought Tony
Oh,
Ferguson.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So you kind of felt bad from tossed in like last minute against Hamza, but fair play to him for taking that. Like,
Yeah, no, seriously ballsy because like no one's like a lot of the fighters are opting to not like accept fights against Hamza because he's just such a killer. But
let
especially
alone
coming in,
yeah, he's
like yeah,
yeah,
it was is a catch weight, yeah. So because obviously I was thinking if he comes in a lot heavier than Kevin Holland in that case, I don't know, but yeah, no, that was a brutal fight. Like that was a really brutal fight for him.
yeah. No, it was grim. It was a grim one. Because like was it Holland was supposed to be fighting? Was he supposed to be fighting? I'm trying to think because if Chimaev was supposed to be fighting Diaz, was he
Nice.
supposed to be fighting
Yeah.
Tony? Was he supposed to be fighting Tony at 170? No,
No, I don't. No, no.
it must
Oh
have been.
well, would that make sense though?
I can't remember how that worked out, but I remember he was scheduled to fight Diaz. Uh,
I
Chimaev.
mean that. I mean that actually might make sense, but
I
yeah,
think so,
I'm
someone
not
must have
actually.
dropped out or something. I don't know. Yeah.
I kind of vaguely remember the styles being a lot different though, because I remember I can't remember exactly who he was meant to be fighting, but I remember kind of in the build up there saying like, how is this kind of switching a matchup? Like you've been preparing for someone completely different, and now you're getting this or not Dagestani, but this kind of Russian wrestler
Yeah, yeah.
type guy. But yeah, no, in fairness to him, like he took the fight when probably a lot of 9 out of 10 people wouldn't have.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I remember they asked him in like the weigh-ins or something. They asked him, was like, "Are you excited for this fight?" Or like, "Are you happy you took it?" And all, he's like, "No, no." He's like,
Yeah,
I don't want this at all." Yeah,
fuck me, yeah.
he's
Like I
like
mean,
he's a real funny character, Kevin Holland. Like he has like the personality of like a superstar, but just like
mm,
I think he has a bit like he's young as well. Like he's young, so he has ability,
yeah.
but just putting those pieces together and trying to get like kind of a run going or something. Like I don't know.
I just think he's missing something at the moment.
Yeah,
It's kind of hard to put your finger on it because he's a phenomenal fighter, but I just think there's a kind of a bridge. There's a bridge between him and the very best fighters in the world. So it's whether he can kind of you know close that gap. We'll have to see, but I think there is a bit of a difference now at the moment.
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Then obviously Santiago Ponzinibbio, Argentinian, and he was like a hugely tipped prospect. I think he put together 7 fight winning streak. Couple of good few years ago now, it's this stage, but he was really promising and like looked like kind of potentially championship material. Since then, I think he had a bad injury, and since then he has been 2-3, 2 wins, 3 losses. So a little bit
Yeah,
inconsistent from him, and of course he's fighting top class contenders and stuff, but definitely like disappointing considering his initial kind of the expectation for him and the hype around him. So it's going to be an interesting fight. I don't know exactly how it's going to go. I think Kevin Holland is actually tipped as the favorite for this. Obviously is really strong jiu-jitsu, and if you can get him down, Holland will definitely probably be in control, you'd imagine. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think this is his third fight in 6 months, Kevin Holland as well. So like he's active, like.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's a tough one because this is a real fight that could go either way. I think I know Santiago is coming off a really nice KO,
Yeah,
but I mean in terms of momentum, if you're going to say momentum wise, he definitely has the momentum. I think obviously Holland we spoke about his loss to Hamza, where he essentially just got manhandled,
yeah,
but even in his most recent fight, it was most recent fight against Wonder Boy.
yes, yeah,
That was still a fairly brutal fight. Like he injured his hand in the end. His corner threw in the towel between rounds because I think he was saying like, "Oh, take my glove off," basically saying, "Look, I've had
yeah,
enough," because I think he broke his hand. But yeah, like Wonder Boy was just teeing off on him in the fourth round, just landing punches and bunches. Like so, I think you'd have to imagine his confidence is kind of taken a knock over the last couple of fights because he's kind of gotten outclassed by Wonder Boy and manhandled by Hamzat. So if he can come in here, he needs it. He needs this one for a confidence booster, I think. So um I'm gonna lean towards Holland just because I think he's a very skillful fighter. I think he's just thereabouts, but I think he can get it done over Santiago.
yeah. I'd actually probably take the dog in this one. I think Santiago Ponzinibbio as the underdog. I think I'd take that to get done by decision. I think but I don't think there'd be an awful lot in this, and yeah, sometimes nice to just back the dog. There has to be a few underdog winners in the night, so I think this could be
Yeah,
one where it's
exactly.
definitely open to being Santiago's fight.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Moving on to Adrian Yanez against Rob Font. Rob Font is the underdog in this. He's actually going into this fight 1-3, but two of those defeats came to Chito Vera and Jose Aldo. So he's been fighting the top class contenders and world class fighters. So it's hard to
Yeah,
kind of criticize him for losing to them when there's the elite of the elite. Adrian Yanez, on the other hand, is actually undefeated in the UFC 16-3. But obviously this is a big step up in contender for him. It's gonna be a really tough fight for him. How do you see this one playing out?
yeah, no, it's a massive opportunity for Yanez because I think Font is ranked 5 or 6, and I think he's 12 or 12, yeah, 12 or 13. So
Yeah,
a win over Font would be kind of huge for his ranking position anyway. Like he'd be kind of straight to fighting someone maybe in the top 5 after this if he got this win.
Yeah,
Um, again, as you say, like like Font is coming off 2 losses, but against Aldo and Vera, like you can't really knock him, and it was 2 decision losses, so can't knock him too much for that. He like huge amount of experience, so it kind of just comes down to whether Font's experience will kind of shine through,
yeah,
or whether Yanez can kind of come in as he's coming in as the favorite, but coming in as the less experienced fighter,
yeah,
and put on a show. I think he's 5 KOs of his last 6, um, so it's a tough one.
yeah,
I think he could come in and get a KO because obviously he's shown that he can do that.
yeah.
But
Font is quite susceptible to being dropped as well. If you watch any of his fights, like he
mm,
does get dropped kind of regularly enough. He's like an unbelievable kickboxer. Like he's so good on his feet, but he kind of takes a punch to give a punch kind of thing. Like he's kind of like he leaves
yeah,
himself open a lot in exchanges. And I do think that, as you said there, Yanez was a 5 KOs in the last 6.
yeah.
I think he'll take full advantage and collect the W here. KO.
Yeah, like as you say, if he can clip him, like if he's susceptible to it and he can clip him, like he's proven that he's able to secure the finish. So, you probably lean toward it. Like it's a tough one to call because it's not they're not at similar kind of points in their career in a way, but yeah, I would probably lean towards Yanez by KO.
Yeah, it's a big one for both fighters to kind of see where they're at and see like kind of define themselves in the rankings. Like Yanez wins, he's probably basically top 5 pretty much and gets a big fight off the back of it. Whereas Ralph Fount wins and he's right back in the mix then as well. So to get another big
Yeah,
fight, so it's a huge, it's a crucial fight for both fighters. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. But we have to move on to the co-main event. Uh,
let's go.
incredible fight. Gilbert Burns taking on the hometown boy Jorge Masvidal. Uh, Gilbert Burns is 2-2 in his last 4, but one of them was the Hamza Chimaev fight, which was close. And it's like he gained stock that night rather than losing any. It was an incredible performance by Gilbert Burns, and he is
Yeah,
right up there into contenders. He can beat anyone in that division on his day. Like he's so underrated and such a strong fighter.
yeah,
Jorge Masvidal, of course, hasn't fought since the Colby fight, isn't it? I think.
yeah.
And he's been in quite a poor run of form as well. Heading into this, I think it's a 3 fight losing streak. Of course, you look at the fighters. I think it's Usman twice and Colby, so he's not fighting like crap fighters. Like he's fighting
No,
the
not by any stretch. Yeah.
champions of the division. He's been in title fights and stuff. So probably Jorge's last run of the title. If he wins this, there's talk that he could get the Leon fight. I think Leon Edwards is going to be in attendance at this one, and he wants Jorge. That's the fight he wants, but Jorge has to hold up his end of the deal to make it a reality. And do you think it's possible?
Oh, I mean, like, I would love to see it. I just think the storyline for that with Leon and Masvidal, obviously the backstage, everyone knows the backstage
Yeah,
kind of the commotion that happened and Masvidal hitting Leon. I think it would be an amazing
one of the
story. I
three
like
big
the matchup. I think Leon is so dangerous, and obviously he's proven his kind of his worth against in the last couple of fights against Usman, but I still like the matchup. I think they're both so slick, really slick boxers and slick kickboxers. So I think it will be a great fight. Although obviously you probably favor Leon in that one, but I think the way I look at the whole kind of environment here for Masvidal is that his last couple of his last 3 he's lost his last 3, but 2 against Usman and then once against Colby. But Colby outclassed him. I think it was 50-43 or something, or
yeah,
50-44. So he was completely outclassed. And then prior to that, he was KO'd, completely out cold against Usman. His last kind of notable wins are against Nate and Ben Askren and Darren Till. Like, and the major thing I actually said it to you a couple of weeks ago. I think the thing that really sticks out and kind of speaks to where Masvidal is at in his career is at the moment he has no wins over any current active fighters in the UFC roster.
wow, yeah.
I think that speaks
I think that's
volumes as to where
until
he's at.
yeah.
You know.
Mm.
because I just think he has no bargaining position, and he has a bargaining position in terms of being the BMF and having and being a big draw, but in terms of actual wins and skill, I don't think he really has a bargaining position now. So
No.
this is his opportunity
Yeah.
to kind of prove his point.
I think Masvidal said if he loses this, he could retire, and I think he might as well because there's
Yeah,
nothing left from if he loses this. To be honest, so it's
100%. Yeah,
a tough fight.
yeah,
I think Masvidal is one where me and you have kind of differed in opinion over the years, ever so slightly. Well, not maybe not ever so slightly because I know you've rated him. I personally think, and I remember saying this to you years ago. I think
yeah,
he's
yeah,
probably the most overhyped, overrated UFC
yeah,
fighters of all time. Genuinely believe
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I don't rate him whatsoever. I think
Mhm.
Darren Till KO, fair enough, like really, really strong. But Till was killing himself to get to 170, and we've kind of seen what he's been like since, and he hasn't pulled up any trees. Ben Askren completely washed at that stage of his career. Obviously, that highlight KO, an unbelievable quickest KO in UFC history,
Mm.
was obviously a huge, huge win for Masvidal, and kind of propelled his star to new levels. But Askren is washed and knocked out by Jake Paul since, hasn't
Yeah,
progressed. Even the Robbie Lawler fight that he won probably should have been stopped already, and it was a controversial stoppage in the end for Askren's win. So I think Askren was just finished by the time he got to the UFC. His body was just in bits from all the wrestling over the years. And then Nate Diaz as well. He probably should be fighting at 155. And any top 10, top 15 welterweight that wants to have any serious title ambitions needs to be beating Nate Diaz at 170 realistically. Obviously, Nate's loved and he's amazing and he's a great character, but you have to be beating him if you want any realistic title ambitions at 170. So, yeah, for me, I think Masvidal has been so like looking at his record, even like his record's pretty atrocious. Funny stat that he's lost to Rafael Asuncion. I remember like years ago
oh,
he lost to
oh yeah,
Asuncion at 155. Like it's so funny, but I just think he's
that is
definitely
funny.
been one of the most overhyped, overrated UFC fighters in history.
Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't deny that he's. I think anyone in a position like him can easily be overrated, and I think you have a good argument for why he is overrated for sure.
Yeah,
Obviously, he's such a big draw. He was a big star for a couple of years. It's dimmed a bit now, but he was a massive star there for a couple of years. Um, I think he's one of the way I would view it is I think he's a very dangerous fighter. Obviously I agree coming in against Askren, like it's questionable. Darren Till, killing himself to get to 170. Nate is just so easily hit and stuff. But I still think, there were still really impressive wins. KO of Darren Till in his backyard, first round. I just think in terms of his boxing, he's one of the kind of top boxers in the UFC. That's how I would look at it. But yeah, no, I don't disagree that he is a little bit overrated for sure.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I think coming into this one, I'd really, really, really struggle to see him beat Gilbert Burns. I just think Gilbert Burns is I think he's too much for him. I
Bet
think,
the house. Bet the house. Gilbert
yeah, no,
Burns
I think
smoked
for sure,
Masvidal.
like, because Burns really showed his heart against Hamza. He showed that he's tough as fucking nails. He can take the abuse and he can give it back. So I think I'd be shocked if Masvidal pulled it off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even like that Colby fight, like his conditioning was terrible. Like it was
Mm.
really bad. Like and Colby just completely smoked him. Uh
Yeah,
like it was embarrassing. And Colby should have finished him like 100%. Uh
definitely.
Gilbert Burns, unless the only hope is like, and it's definitely possible. We've seen him do it before. Masvidal catches Gilbert with something early in the first round.
Yeah,
That's it. That's the
yeah,
only hope. Yeah. And
yeah.
if he does, it sets up that Leon fight, and I hope Leon gets it for it's an
For the
easy
money.
fight for Leon, I think, and it's a nice payday for Leon, and it's a bit of redemption, whatever you want to call it, for Leon as well. And if Masvidal somehow beats Gilbert Burns, beats Jorge Masvidal, the only fight to make for the welterweight title, Jorge Masvidal and the notorious Conor McGregor. It's the only fight to
Oh,
make, and it's the only chance that Conor McGregor has of winning a welterweight title. It's the only chance.
yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, you'd actually fancy McGregor against
100%.
Masvidal because,
Yeah.
like, you would.
Masvidal will be
And
40 by then, like
but like, I mean, yeah, no, I know exactly. Like, he's just too old for it. But I mean,
two big
never
hitters.
mind Gilbert Burns. I think Leon would fucking outclass Masvidal pretty handily. Like, even if he didn't get a KO over him, I think he'd 50-43 him or something. Like, I
Yeah,
think he'd legit, like, every
absolutely.
minute of that fight, I'd say he'd beat him. Like,
Yeah, everywhere.
yeah,
But yeah, like they only chat that's the kind of pipe dream. The only I don't really necessarily even like Jorge Masvidal that much, really. And but the only reason, the only positive I see from him beating Gilbert Burns is that he wins the title somehow, and then he fights McGregor because that's his class. Like for
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to fucking see
probably
it.
like everyone in the top 15 probably beats the two people in the title fight. Like, but it's still funny to
Yeah.
watch them.
Yeah, no, that's actually, yeah. And definitely not put it against the UFC to make that fight.
Don't,
You know they would.
don't,
You know they would,
yeah,
for sure.
100%. Yeah, yeah. It's
That's
100%.
money in the bank, like.
So yeah, it's gonna be super interesting. One last thing on this fight is that did you see? I know Masvidal was on the JRE podcast recently, and Joe Rogan came out and said something like I kind of saw the headline, I didn't fully see it, but something about like GSP not being as good as the welterweights nowadays and stuff, and that Jorge Masvidal is a better fighter than GSP and all this stuff. And it's like Rogan, of course, I'm in no
Yeah.
position to call out his knowledge of UFC and MMA and everything. Like it's so much higher than mine will ever be, but that is a way off take. Sure, like I maybe I need to see the context of it,
But Joe has had some outlandish kind of comments over the years. As you say, he's probably one of the most knowledgeable MMA commentators you'll ever see. But I think like he has had some outlandish takes in terms of like Ronda Rousey beating Floyd Mayweather in a street fight. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he gets overexcited by like
yeah,
certain kind of trends or concepts in
that's what
MMA.
we love him as well. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like he's funny, like, but no, I mean, again, yeah, I think I actually I watched clips from that podcast, but yeah, if that was what was said and that's how he meant it, I think that's seriously miles off comparison. Yeah.
and now it's time for our main event of the evening. Of course, it's an enticing rematch for the middleweight title between Israel Adesanya. Now, of course, the challenger, which is a weird thing to say, facing the champion and his arch nemesis, really, at this stage, Alex Pereira. Pereira now holds 3 wins over Izzy, 2 in kickboxing and 1 in the UFC. And they kind of brought Pereira in as this challenger and kind of gave him a fast track to the title. And he's probably one of those fighters that loses to a lot of the kind of contenders nearly in the middleweight division, but just has his number, it seems. And it's a real, it's going to be an absolute fire. It's going to be it's an amazing scrap.
Mm.
Going on it I it's yeah, you take it away. It's hard to even put it into words how like this fight, how much it means to both, and like what it means for them, and like where they go from here after this as well.
I know, yeah. I actually seen something there today that I was just like actually describes it perfectly. It's like if you had to say one fight to get your bird to like be interested in MMA, this would be
For
one
sure.
because it's like for the storyline and you know what I mean, coming back for and you could show the clip of Izzy saying, you know, he's gonna look at he'd be in a bar trying to get with a cracker or saying, you know, I beat that guy one time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you know, he took it fucking personally and he said, right, I'm gonna train and I'm gonna transition to MMA and he's come in fucking like a steam train, KOing people left, right, and center. And then obviously, as you say, given their history, he was kind of given that opportunity at the title, and he fucking took it like
yeah.
unbelievable matchup because I think stylistically they're just so well matched because they're both like elite kickboxers. Their records in kickboxing are both fucking unbelievable. Um, so I think overall, like Adesanya, like funnily enough, even though he's lost 3 times to Pereira, I think in terms of MMA anyway,
Mm.
you probably have to favor his overall MMA skills. But I just think Pereira is a massive middleweight, and I think he weathered the storm. I think he did get caught a couple of times and he got wobbled.
That first round goes like 20 seconds longer, and Izzy finishes him probably.
Stunned.
Yeah,
Stunned. And then it's a first round KO, and we're the way we're talking about it changes completely. But
yeah.
no, that whatever the bell went, he came back, he recovered, and yeah, he got it done in the end, and he kind of just overpowered Izzy at the end. Really, like it wasn't like it was a flat line KO, but he
Sheer
just looked
size. Yeah.
quick. Yeah, exactly. Sheer size, just towering over Izzy, backed him up against the fence, and just landed bombs. So I mean, the question is now when we come to this rematch, and then obviously their fourth fight in reality, like does Pereira just have Izzy's number? Is it as simple as that? That's the question we come to now, and it's a difficult one to answer. I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. The biggest kind of compliment you can pay to Pereira is that, like, listen, Izzy is this masterful kickboxer, and like no one in the division can touch him. His takedown defense is amazing. He seems like he has all the minerals and all the credentials and everything you need to be this champion for years to come. And of course, he showed it. He pretty much cleared out the division and ran over people twice. I think he beat Whitaker twice. He's cleared it out and doing laps of it nearly. And then this fella from Brazil, from the favelas, like he's like crazy sorry, like, and he just looks, I think Joe Rogan, I remember Joe Rogan described him as like his ancestors were like wild animal, like John, like he has that like
Yeah,
wild
yeah,
holistic approach, and like he's such a scary, intimidating character. And the biggest compliment, as I said, you can pay to Pereira is that he turned Izzy and will turn Izzy into a wrestler. Like Izzy's route to victory is his wrestling, because Pereira is just like very susceptible to being taken down, and it's definitely like 100% his weak spot. Um,
mm,
and I think Izzy is definitely the more well-rounded mixed martial artist. But Pereira just big guy and has hands like bricks and can just KO Izzy if you like at any point. And um, I do think my prediction will. I'm going to back an Izzy to reclaim the title. I think he will mix
yeah,
it wrestling. I think he won 3 out of the 5 or the 4 rounds before the last round. I think he'd won 3 out of the 4. So like he's clearly the stronger, more, yeah, well, as I said, well-rounded fighter. But it kind of brings you back to like thinking about the Usman Leon Edwards fight. It's like, oh, he got a 5th round KO and he lost all the previous rounds. And then the next fight, Leon brings in all his
yeah,
confidence from the previous fight, and he's knocked him out before
yeah.
he says his number. And people are different after getting knocked out as well. People just are different, different mentalities. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Izzy kind of maybe compares to Usman in that way, that dominant champion, and then loses once and then face that same guy in a quick turnaround in a rematch and loses again. And everyone expects Usman to do it. So
Mm.
everyone expects Izzy to maybe do it again. So it's really, really intriguing. And it's kind of eerily similar to that welterweight bout as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually, now that you brought it up, it is actually it's extremely similar because it's it was a kind of a shock KO in the end. I think there is that those kind of layers though. Obviously, Leon and Usman had fought before and he had been beaten by decision, but I think considering Izzy's only been KO'd by one man and now it's twice. He's been KO'd twice by the same guy and he's never ever been KO'd in the rest of his MMA career. Um, I just think even watching some of his interviews, there is this kind of anticipation in his voice, and obviously it makes sense. He wants revenge, and this means a lot to him. Probably the biggest fight of his whole career.
Yeah.
So obviously there is. It's warranted that he'd be anticipating it and kind of a bit antsy about it, but I do sense this kind of nervousness or kind of he's overly kind of I don't know how to put it into words,
Overthinking
but
stuff. Yeah,
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 he's too he's got too much on the line. I feel
yeah.
for him to
Overly
perform
invested, like.
at his absolute best. I just think it's such a tough one coming in after someone who basically everyone considers he has his number. So I think I'm leaning towards Pereira again, as you say. It happened to Usman, and it's not only just what happens after you get KO'd, but I heard a lot of people saying after you become champion, it's this newfound confidence, this new level of confidence that you can achieve after winning that title. So I think Pereira comes in. Ultimately, he knows he can beat Izzy. There's no question. So I think he comes in ultra confident, and I think he gets it done again.
Huge, huge KO.
I mean, yeah, I can't see him winning by decision just based on I think Izzy has the ability to edge him out
Yeah,
over 5 rounds. But I think Pereira will eventually. It might be in the 5th round, it could be in the last minute of the 5th round, but I think he will eventually overpower him and overwhelm him, and I think he'll get it done. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And do you think if Pereira does, as you say, as your prediction goes, if he wins this, do you think he goes straight to 205? Do you think he sticks around?
I mean, like I seen a photo of him the other day with beside a light heavyweight fighter. I can't remember who, and he looked bigger. Like than like I was just like, this guy has no right to be fighting at middleweight. So,
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
I think that's where he'd be best suited. I think if he bulked up, obviously he doesn't probably need to realistically bulk up, but it's less of a weight cut. It's less stressful on his body.
Yeah.
I think you could even see an improved version of Pereira at 205. So I think that would be the play for him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Izzy, what if it? Because if Izzy loses and then Pereira goes straight up, he probably gets another, maybe not another shot straight away, but he probably reclaims the title without Pereira in his way, doesn't he? Like,
I mean, yeah. I mean, it depends on how coming off these two losses would affect him.
yeah,
And if he gets KO'd again, like that's 2 KO losses, and he's lost to him 4 times. It's a devastating situation for him to be in if he loses this one again. So you'll have to see how it affects his confidence. But obviously, he's still top of the division. There's no question. So, I mean, you would fancy him to reclaim the middleweight title after if Pereira moves up. But and I think he doesn't have any other real options. So I was just even thinking, like, is he fought at light heavyweight that time against Blachowicz, and he didn't seem like he was big enough. He didn't kind of suit that weight class. So I
yeah.
think
No,
middleweight's his home anyway for sure.
no, Izzy does move up. I don't think. I think he learned his lesson that time. I think he weighed in like
Yeah,
125 or like he couldn't even weigh in at like he's just not
he was.
naturally
Yeah,
that
he
big
was
of a
definitely
guy.
short. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, I think Pereira, like, it's weird because I think if he does stick, I think obviously Izzy's beaten Whitaker twice, but then I think Whitaker could beat Pereira, and then Pereira beats it. It's like that weird triangle, and then like, I
Has is he 2 wins over Whitaker?
think so. Yeah, yeah.
Let me just have a look. Sorry, just out of
Pretty sure it
interest.
does. It's that weird kind of triangle where,
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah, of course, yeah, he does.
yeah,
Fair play. I actually forgot about that second fight.
yeah, yeah. And I heard Whitaker come out and say that like he thinks he'd beat Pereira, and I don't doubt it because I think that wrestling, if Pereira comes up against a straight wrestler, I think he's in trouble.
Yeah, like I think Whitaker, funnily enough, matches up well against Pereira because if he can dodge those kind of head big shots, I think he definitely Whitaker's a stud. Like
Yeah,
he's a fucking
exactly.
unbelievable fighter. So you wouldn't put it against him to take him down and kind of just take the fight to where he's strongest.
No, no, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're in for an intriguing main card and prelims. The prelims are cracking as well. An amazing card at UFC 287. An absolutely uh, couple of massive fights going down in Miami. So really, really excited for that. If you did enjoy the video, guys, make sure to drop a like on it down below and make sure to subscribe as well. Might try and get this out on Spotify and stuff as well. I know it's kind of longer form, so sometimes it's easy to stick the headphones in and listen. So yeah, plenty of stuff like that. And if obviously early days in the channel still, so much appreciated if you can kind of spread the word and get it out and let us know if you have anything you want to see or anything like that as well. So yeah, all feedback is very, very welcome. But yeah, Dave, an absolute pleasure as always, my friend.
Likewise, bro.
And we will hopefully have a recap of this fantastic card coming next week as well. But yeah, stay tuned, guys. Thanks, William.
Cheers, guys.